Hi.
All right, so we are here with Ella Shirelli, and she is our partner, and it will take us to the Washington Monument. And this is a virtual tour. So, on behalf of this nation, enjoy it.
Great. Thank you so much. And welcome everyone to our virtual tour of the Washington Monument, which dominates the Washington landscape. I'm Ella Shirelli, and we're having a beautiful day, just like this picture. I'm a licensed guide here in Washington, D.C., working with DC Nation Tours. So let's go ahead and get started. So you may be wondering, where is Washington, D.C.? You may be coming to us today from all different parts of the world. Well, Washington, D.C. is on the East Coast, and you'll see some of the states that surround us. Washington, D.C. is the nation's capital. We're surrounded by Maryland and Virginia. We're going to go to the heart of Washington, D.C. We're going to take you to the National Mall, where we are going to find the Washington Monument. It dominates the city landscape. It rises 555 feet, and it has 360-degree views of Washington, D.C. Now, when you come to Washington, D.C., millions of people come to the Washington Monument, but only 55 people per half hour can go up the elevator to the top to the observation deck to see these beautiful views. But don't you worry, that is our destination today. First, let me take you back to the Revolutionary War days, when the colonies bravely fought freedom from British rule. Who was the general in charge of the army at that time? Yes, indeed, it was General George Washington. And the monument, like the man, stands in no one's shadow. George Washington was selected this site to be our nation's capital. And he secured the support of Pierre L'Enfant to map out the capital city in 1791, the L'Enfant Plan. Now, the Washington Monument is surrounded by memorials today. What's the difference between a memorial and a monument? In 1783, the old Confederation Congress had a resolution, and I quote, that an equestrian statue of George Washington be erected at the place of residence of the U.S. Congress, wherever that's established. Indeed, we can see one of these envisioned equestrian statues right here in Washington Circle in Foggy Bottom, Northwest. Now, on the statue should be engraving, and again, I quote, "In honor of George Washington, the illustrious Commander-in-Chief of the armies of the United States of America, during the war which vindicated and secured their liberty, sovereignty, and independence," end quote. Now, in 1783, George Washington was very much alive. A monument is dedicated to someone when they are alive. A memorial is dedicated after their death. Now, the equestrian statue of George Washington, it's handsome, but it's hardly memorable. The Washington Monument, dedicated to the man who is described as first in war, first in peace and first in the hearts of their countrymen must be grand, and indeed it is. Upon completion in 1884, the Washington Monument was the tallest building in the world. It still is the largest obelisk in the world. And we'll never forget our first president. So come now and let's get ready to experience this grand monument. Look, 50 flags fly around the Washington Monument. And there always seems to be a breeze up here. Now, as we look around and start to come back towards the monument, we touch the monument and we can feel the cold marble exterior. Behind is granite and a bluestone gneiss, which is a metamorphic rock. Now, just for fun, lay down on your back and put your feet up on the wall. And now let's look up. 555 feet, 5 1/8 inches tall. Whoa, are you getting dizzy? On this spot in 1848, construction began with private funds. It was a large group of citizens called the Washington Monument Society. For more than a decade, they would raise funds and they would secure a design by Robert Mills. His design was described as audacious, ambitious, and extremely expensive. This design had a 600-foot obelisk and like a Greek temple around it. Funding became challenging and construction stopped during the Civil War. At that point, the monument was only 152 feet tall. Now, when you look up the monument, do you see a slightly different color marble? This is because when construction resumed again in 1876, now this time with congressional funding and approval, the quarry in Baltimore was unavailable. A second quarry in Massachusetts was deemed inappropriate, and another quarry outside of Baltimore was selected to finish construction. So that's why you'll see a little different color in the exterior marble. Okay, now it's time to stand up, dust yourself off, and let me take you to the top. And speaking about the top, it was Thomas Lincoln Casey Sr. from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that completed the project after 1855, Robert Mills' death. So, Casey would substantially streamline the original design, basically leaving the obelisk structure and reinforcing the base, the foundation, as the foundation holds a 45,000 ton stone structure. It's awesome. Now, get your camera. It's time for us to go to the top. And right now it's our time, so get in line. We're headed in. Here we are in the lobby. You can feel the cold air, thick, ancient. Here we can see the Civil War soldiers. And behind, you'll see the structure stopped at 152 feet. Now, you might think that graffiti is a modern form of art. Not so. Look, D.C. Hickey in 1861 has left his tag inside the Washington Monument, and we can see it. Now, let me call your attention to George Washington, who does his very best to greet us, although he never smiles much because he had bad teeth. Here it says, "My whole life has been dedicated to the service of my country." And what I must tell you about George Washington is his first passion was his home in Mount Vernon. He loved the plantation lifestyle. He loved to create businesses on the plantation, and he had a beautiful view of the Potomac River. But you see, he was called to service to be our general. Then once again, he was called back to join and serve our country again as president. Some of his most precious years were in government service and not here at Mount Vernon, his first love. But you can visit Mount Vernon, and I encourage you to when you come and visit Washington, D.C. Now, if we go inside, you can be adventurous and take the steps up to the top of the monument. I'm going to take the 72nd high-speed elevator that was just installed last September 2019. Now, when the monument opened in 1886, people did use the stairs, but they created some damage. That was quickly rectified by including a steam-powered elevator that took guests to the top of the observation deck. But it took 10 to 12 minutes. Haha, here we are in 70 seconds. Now, we are exiting here into the Pyramidion, the uppermost part or capstone of an Egyptian-style pyramid, or in our case, an obelisk. You see, the Egyptian obelisk was used to convey the timelessness of ancient democratic civilizations. The top was typically covered in gold to reflect the sun, as well as inscribed with the name of the owner of the pyramid. Now, in our case, the Pyramidion is made up of marble and inside supported with buttress. It is capped on the exterior with a precious metal, at the time, aluminum. It is inscribed with important facts and names about the monument. On the east panel are the Latin words Laus Deo, which translates into praise be to God. Heavens knows this was an amazing feat of construction by many, including enslaved people who would become emancipated or freed by the time of the project's end. Now, come back inside with me and let's look out the window. Here's the east view, a city we see largely true to the original plan of Pierre L'Enfant, with lots of green space. But the Capitol building. Now, the Capitol holds Congress. Congress had their own plan for how to honor George and Martha Washington. You see the Great Dome? Underneath the dome is a crypt. And it was the intention to bury George and Martha Washington here in the Capitol building crypt. They rest in peace as they wanted it in their home at Mount Vernon. And you can visit and pay your respects to George and Martha on your visit to Mount Vernon. Now, let's take a look. We can see on the right a large castle, a red brick castle, which is the first Smithsonian Museum. Today, it is a visitor center for the Smithsonians. It's a great place to start your discovery of Washington. The building opens at 8:30 in the morning. You can get a comprehensive map of the Washington area, and you can ask the docents what is being featured at the Smithsonian Museums, so you can plan your visit. Down the block is the Air and Space Museum, a Smithsonian that children love. Across the way is the National Art Gallery. That is free. It is not a Smithsonian, and it holds inside the only Leonardo da Vinci painting on this side of the Atlantic. Then the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History. Next to it is the American History. And then the very foreground, we have the newest Smithsonian Museum, the Smithsonian Museum of African American History and Culture. You'll have plenty to explore. Now let's go to the north side. And what will we see on the north side? Front and center is the White House. That's where the president lives. And off to the left, you will see the old executive office building. And that's where the president's advisors and council members are. If you go to the right-hand side, you will see the Treasury Department building. This is a building designed by Robert Mills. So just imagine putting an obelisk behind that building and you'll have a good idea what his original design for the Washington Monument might have looked like. The nice green space we have here is called the eclipse. And in the center, there's an evergreen tree, and that serves as our national Christmas tree. And we celebrate the holidays and all the traditions on the eclipse during December. Now let's take a look on the south side. Whoa, look at those clouds moving quickly. We can almost reach out and touch them. Down below, we see the cars moving by. We can't hear them from up here, but we know there's a lot of bustle going on. And directly in front of us, we'll see the Jefferson Memorial. That's in the tidal basin, and the tidal basin is surrounded by our iconic cherry trees, which bloom so beautifully every spring. And we have a wonderful cherry blossom festival to help us celebrate. Then, if we come back, we have one final view, and that's the view to the west. And in the back, you will see the Potomac River. Directly in front of us is the Lincoln Memorial, and that pays tribute to President Lincoln, our 16th president, who served during the time of our Civil War. Then there's the reflecting pool, and then World War II Memorial. Off to the left, you'll see the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, and that pays tribute to the civil rights icon. Now, if we come back in, the air is getting a little stuffy right now, so we may want to start our journey down. Here we go. When we go down the elevator, we will see 194 commemorative stones. Remember, in phase 1, privately funded, the Washington Monument received funds from states, civic organizations, other countries and governments, and even individuals. They gave plaques to remember their contribution and pay tribute to Washington. We see those inside on our descent back to ground floor. Here we are, back on the ground floor. And when you come to Washington, you can visit the Washington Monument day or night. It is a popular destination. If you're planning your visit and you'd like to go to the top, you can go to recreation.gov 90 days before your visit and for a nominal fee, secure up to 6 tickets. Same-day tickets are available right here at the Washington Monument Lodge on 15th Street Northwest. Here you'll find restrooms and a gift shop. Behind is where they give out the same-day tickets for free. They begin at 8:30 in the morning, but on busy season, I recommend that you line up before 8:30. So, as you continue to explore Washington, D.C., you are likely to find the Washington Monument in other places. Here in Adams Morgan, we have street art. We call this the largest postcard in Washington, D.C., and it features the Washington Monument. You may also see the Washington Monument in movies. How many of you have seen Spider-Man? Have you seen Spider-Man running on the monument? Well, let me tell you that in 2011, we had an earthquake, and we in fact had actual Spider-Men on the outside of the monument. They had to patch up about 150 cracks that the monument sustained during that earthquake. So, I hope you've been inspired by today's tour. And are you beginning to recognize how the immortal name and memory of George Washington is represented perhaps in your hometown? I recall growing up outside New York City area, and we would cross the George Washington Bridge on our way to summer vacation. I came down to Washington, D.C. to attend the George Washington University for my studies. And I now visit my friends in the great state of Washington. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the George Washington Monument, and from all of us at DC Nation Tours, we look forward to welcome you to Washington, D.C. I hope everyone stays safe, and when you come to Washington, come smile with us. If you've enjoyed today's tour, put a little note and let us know. Again, visit us, DC Nation Tours. Come smile with us. Stay well. Thank you.